and making millions of euros a year by fixing football matches. Investigators suspect hundreds of ties across Europe, including Champions League fixtures, have been rigged. With only a few weeks to go before the new season kicks off, how safe is the European game? We've been to Italy to see what's being done to tackle the football fraudsters. Paul Hackett reports.
Italy, home to some of the most passionate football fans in the world. But how sure can Italian supporters be that the game they love so much is not being fixed? Rocked by a spate of scandals, probes involving dozens of players throwing games for cash bribes are still ongoing. Banned for 16 months, former player Francesco Ruppolo admits he helped fix results for around €15,000 a match.
È stato un errore a dire sì, di cui
It was a mistake to say yes. Almost immediately I regretted it. But to get out of it would have been very tough.
Facile da buttare giù, perché comunque non era una cosa.
I was frightened. It was hard to accept. I never thought I'd ever do anything like that.
Secondo momento dire di no ad altre partite quando si ripresentava l'occasione.
Afterwards, it was really difficult to refuse other fixed matches because behind these bets there were people you wouldn't invite to dinner.
Poco raccomandabile.
Former Turin and Novara goalkeeper Alberto Fontana was also banned for fixing but later cleared on appeal. Now running a goalkeeping school, he believes the players who do fix often fail to understand the criminal deals they're entering into.
It's true that the players are the last link in the chain, but they're not criminals. The players are superficial. They earn money by kicking a ball about. One can earn money easily by doing very little, or avoiding a ball or moving a little to the side. Or if you're a goalkeeper, you can let in a goal. This is how match fixing was born.
But Italy isn't unique. Last February, European police said they'd uncovered evidence of match fixing in Europe and beyond on an unprecedented scale. An organised criminal betting syndicate working out of Asia, notably Singapore, remains the prime suspect. The idea that not everything is above board in Italian and world football is hardly a revelation, but the big worry for footballing and international authorities is the apparent lack of teamwork and resources being dedicated to beat the match fixers. Italian prosecutor Roberto Di Martino is leading a major match-fixing investigation, but he says he's had next to no help from police forces in other countries.
Not enough is being done. Generally, each country looks after its own interests and doesn't have a global vision. For example, up to now, Singapore has given us no help.
UEFA and FIFA both insist they have a zero-tolerance approach to match-fixing, but with European investigators warning they may have only uncovered the tip of the iceberg, fans might rightly question if football's governing bodies are really doing what it takes to tackle the criminals.
With me now to discuss football and organised crime is Rob Wainwright, Director of Europol, the EU's law enforcement agency, and Declan Hill, author of the international best-selling book The Fix, an expose on match fixing in football. Gentlemen, many thanks for joining us on the front line.
Thank you.
Rob Wainwright, back in February, Europol shook the world of football by officially revealing the full extent of match fixing. Where's your investigation now? What's new?
Well, at the time we were talking about 380 matches at least that we suspected of fixing. There's a further 300 that have come out of that inquiry, and investigators around Europe are following that up now. And since then, we've taken a more active interest in other areas of football match fixing, and we're close, I think, to signing agreements for 2 new major international investigations in Europe with investigators around the EU. So we're very much hot on this at the moment, making sure that we can do what we can to work with European investigators to protect this.
Are you out of your depth?
I don't think we are at all, actually. We've arrived at this based on our great expertise and knowledge of fighting organised crime. This is an example of the latest form of organised crime affecting our society and our economy. Criminals are moving into this area because they see it as a high-profit, low-risk area, and they're trying to make some fast bucks out of by ruining a world sport. We're going to make sure that we do something about that.
So how credible is Italian football, for example?
I think Italian football is a dead man walking. I don't see how anyone can have any credibility in that sport now. And I know that seems extreme, but let me give you a few facts. One, Italian police just launched an investigation into 41 Italian teams for money laundering. They've got over 20 teams now actively being investigated for match fixing. I mean, this is far more larger than half the teams in that league. So I'm with the former Italian Prime Minister. I think that they should suspend Italian football for a certain amount of time. They should clean it up. They should bring in people from outside the sport and really clean this up properly.
So, Rob Wainwright, then, how can you say you're not out of your depth if we're seeing that just in one country we've got to basically start from the top down to eradicate corruption?
Well, I think Declan has been following this story for many years. I have to say, from my side, from the number of investigations that we're looking at Europe, I haven't lost faith yet with European football. I still think large parts of the professional game in Europe are still clean. And I think, therefore, that this is a problem. Clearly, it's not a small problem, but I don't think yet it's polluted and destroyed the game that we all love. We need a global vision, a global response to this problem, and Europol is doing its part to make sure that we can provide that.
Okay, so how do you fix a match?
Well, currently what we're looking at is a new form where you've got these Asian-based guys that are fixing this vast Asian gambling market, and then they make connections with local criminals, be they in Bulgaria, Italy, Greece, Germany, Belgium, wherever they are. And those guys go and they bribe the referees or they bribe players, or what we're seeing now is they're actually bribing the club owners, and the club owners are saying, right, we'll win 30 matches this season, we'll lose 10, and we'll make more money losing those 10 games than we will in winning the rest.
How many people do you need on a fix to make it work?
Well, ideally, you'll have both teams and the referee and both club owners, and so you turn the entire thing into a piece of theatre. At worst, you'll simply get the referee. A referee's a bit dodgy to arrange a fix because the best they can do is give a few penalties. But ideally, you'll have both teams, and that's happened.
Okay, well, let's just pause and listen to this.
Juventus former general manager Luciano Moggi is currently banned from football. He was implicated in Italy's 2006 match-fixing scandal, which saw clubs hand-picking officials for games. Despite that, Moggi told On the Front Line he doesn't think the current fixing problem lies with referees.
I've never seen bent referees. Don't believe they exist. I've seen referees who are wrong, because referees can make mistakes. Like a player can commit a foul. The referee can also make a mistake by disallowing a goal, by not giving a penalty. They can give unfair punishments. But to say they're corrupt, I don't believe that.
Rob Wainwright, what do you say to that? No bent referees?
Well, they clearly were suspected to be bent in some of our cases that were investigated. And, this is an aspect of organised crime, using a lot of money to corrupt a lot of officials, and we see it in other walks of life, other parts of society and the economy, frankly. There's no reason why a referee isn't as vulnerable, perhaps, as some other officials in different parts of the authorities, and we've certainly seen it in some cases.
Declan, what's your reaction to that?
To Moggi, I thought you were putting it on for comic relief. I mean, it's a great laugh, but come on. I mean, Moggi is a convicted match fixer. He's been banned from things. Of course he's going to come on and say, downplay the problem. I mean, this is a systemic problem they have in Italian football. Not true for all European football, but in that country there's a serious, significant problem. And really, I don't see much credibility, much of a credible response from the footballing authorities in that country.
Okay, so we've also talking about the kind of Asian part of this. It seems to be a very important factor when it comes to match fixing. One name keeps coming up again and again, this guy Dan Tan, who seems to be the kingpin of it all. Why hasn't he been arrested?
I think there have been honest, legitimate attempts by the authorities in Europe to make sure that the principal suspects, including those in Asia, face justice, and there's some attempts to extradite some of them as well. I can't speak directly for why that hasn't happened yet, but I know that honest attempts by prosecutors have been made.
Do you think the Singaporean authorities are protecting him because they could hand him over?
They're protecting him. Look, not only are they protecting him, there are officials here who are protecting him. In Rome in January, I was invited to be one of the keynote speakers for a conference held by Interpol and FIFA. And I stood up on the stage and said, you really want to stop match fixing? 5 words, Dan Tan must be arrested. And I'm the fellow that is the reason why you're saying Dan Tan. The reason why I'm saying that is no one else ever mentioned Dantan's name. There are commissions for the European Union, there's commissions for the Council of Europe, there's UEFA, there's FIFA, there's Interpol. Those people don't dare mention his name.
Do you not dare mention his name?
Well, listen, we've got to follow due process, Isabel, and we have to make sure that in following that due process, particularly while investigations are ongoing, that we don't talk to everyone about what our state of investigation is. That's just naive, frankly. We've got our job to protect, and we're doing that in the right way and still making sure that justice will be done.
FIFA has the early warning system to monitor betting. How effective is that?
The early warning system is by their own confession. I mean, you talk to those executives and they'll say, look, you know, we're not a bad organization, but we're largely ineffective and useless. And the reason why they're useless is they cannot monitor actively that Asian gambling market. And that's where the fixes work. And that Asian gambling market dwarfs European and North American gambling markets combined. So that's their problem.
And the World Cup is just around the corner. Do you think that's going to be clean?
They're always there. These fixers always go to these big international football tournaments. And FIFA's reaction has been, yes, they're always here, but they've never succeeded. And I'm saying, what? These guys are the most unlucky tourists in the world? They go to all these different tournaments and they always fail, but they always come back?
So, yeah, so a corrupt World Cup.
No, no, let's not exaggerate. I'm not saying that there's going to be a corrupt World Cup. I'm going to be saying, without question, those fixes will be at the World Cup. They will be approaching players. And the question that fans should be asking is, what's stopping them?
What's your take on the 2014 World Cup?
Listen, I fundamentally believe in the integrity of the game in the end. I think the large parts of the professional game, certainly the top of the game, is clean in my view. I've also seen authorities fighting back, particularly in Europe. So I'm not giving up on the game that I love just yet. And I'm sure we can look forward, therefore, to a successful and clean World Cup.
Gentlemen, many thanks for joining us on the front line. As you've been hearing, match fixing is rife. 30 different countries were identified in Europol's investigation, many of those in Europe. That's all for this episode of On the Front Line. We return in September.